never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid. Only shooting stars break the mold.
Welcome to another episode of the NRL Allstars podcast. Barnesy here, your host of the Allstars podcast, here for a quick-fire TLT for the Allstars. As I mentioned on the team preview for the Roosters, if you didn't catch it today, I am going to be jumping on the Daily Telegraph official show once a month to do the TLT for Tuesdays over there. So on those weeks, I won't get a full All-Stars episode out there, but I will do a bit of a quick-fire one with my thoughts and things that I couldn't cover with Tom Sangster when I was on there. So for this week, we've obviously got two less games in the schedule because we talked about last week's ones before Vegas. Now, I think the first one's the Storm and the Eels coming up. And realistically, there's a couple of talking points. And what I'm going to do on these quick-fire ones, guys and girls, is just go through a couple of points on each team that I noticed that I thought was relevant that I perhaps haven't been able to talk about just yet. So on the Storm side of things, edge thoughts. So Lasardi and Chan are both there on the edges. One of the things that's sort of, I guess, in the back of my mind that hasn't really been spoken about, probably enough or at all even, is that in the preseason, there was whispers around that Blore had had a bit of a falling out at Melbourne, perhaps might even come off the bench. So I think that might factor into things as well. It wouldn't surprise me massively if Blore was benched to start the season, particularly coming back from that ankle injury and having a disrupted preseason. So that could help things for someone like Lasardi as well. The other thing too is that it was always just assumed because Chan was on the Hughes right-hand side that he's got the Eli Katoa spot and Lasardi doesn't. Now, one of the other things that did come up in the preseason was it was thrown up, does Blore potentially move sides and go on the right? And that was something that was supposedly looked at by Bellamy in the Storm. So, I mean, if that were to happen, Blore may very well go in and start on the right-hand side next to Hughes. And the Storm may very well be looking at that. So they've got some experience there next to Hughes and that's their preferred side. So look, there's those couple of things that have made me probably go back onto Lasardi if I'm going to start one of them and stay off Chan. I don't really want to have both. But the other thing with Chan is I touched on it with Sangster when I was chatting on the official show. The PPM for Chan, I've gone back and had a look at it. Over the last couple of seasons, he started 5 games in the second row for the Storm, averaging around 70 minutes for those games he started. And he's got a 0.63 PPM. Pretty bad. It's a 44 average. Yeah, he's only a little bit over 300K, but he's not exactly bottom dollar. So that's going to matter when you're looking at the price point as well. So there's just a couple of things there that I'm really not too sure about when it comes to those edges, but I have sort of sided with Lasardi. As far as other cheapies go, Moses Leo, I didn't get to really put my take on him, but I really like him because, you know, aside from the fact of the job security, being at centre, he's got the extra opportunity to score even that little bit more. You know, I thought, like a lot of people, that he'd end up on the wing, and that hasn't happened. So I like that he's at centre. He should get more tackles and a huge amount of opportunity to get try assists and line break assists under the new scoring criteria as well for those. So Leo is really shaping up as an option that you need to get in. I've considered having one less gun in my side to accommodate Leo. I have also considered getting rid of Makasini, knowing that he's a week behind all the other cheapies on his price rises, and there may very well be an injury or suspension or something in the first month of football that's an easy downgrade to him. But the other thing that I don't think will happen, but he's still there, is that he was always battling to start. He had a great preseason, but he has other experienced guys there that Benji might end up preferring. I don't think it will happen, but it's not 100% he's going to be named to start next week either. So you could look at it that way. Obviously, there's a lot of cheapies. You could also look at just changing your strategy build and just having a whole heap of cheapies in centre wing because there's a lot there and there's a lot to like with them. On the Eel side of things, Hopgood. I really noticed the bench and I just thought that's such a good bench for him. Aside from the fact that he is named a prop, which is fantastic. On the bench, you've got De Silva, obviously going to spell at hooker, and he is going to stay there and get minutes, I'm pretty sure. I don't think they'll just not play him. So when you look at that and you go, well, that means there's only 3 forwards on the bench, and they're Dory, Walker, who will play at 13 for DeBellin, and Tuabart. That's a pretty good bench to say that Hopgood's going to get at least 55 minutes, I reckon. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 65, though. If it's 65 minutes for Hopgood, that's golden, and he's such good value at 500k. I think the bench has really helped his cause to be a buy for round one to start with him. Aside from that, I'm not sure what's going to happen this game. Yeah, you could look at some VC options, but it's a pretty tough one. Broncos and Panthers was the next one. And the thing that stood out for me on this one that I wanted to quick fire on was Payne Haas actually has his best average against Penrith, believe it or not. 84 average career-wise versus the Panthers, which is equal best with the Dolphins, but he's only had a handful of games against the Dolphins. So really, that Panthers average really sticks out. He's had big games and he had them last year as well. So as a C option, it's pretty safe, it looks, even though I think the matchup could be tough for the Bronx. I'm expecting the Bronx to maybe start slow. I think that the Panthers are specials in this one as underdogs. Speaking about career averages, Brian Toto has come right back into my calculations for my team. He has his third best average against the Broncos, 77-point average against the Bronx, third best out of any other club. Pretty good opposition for him. I reckon he's going to go for a try. I actually think the Panthers are going to win and score some points on that back line. So I really like Toto now again that I've looked at it, and also because I'm looking at downgrading some other centre wing guns to accommodate some of these team list changes. And he's someone who you could downgrade maybe one of your 700 guys to and find money that way. But the Panthers bench was the other thing that really struck me on this one that I wanted to touch on. When you're looking at the bench, they've also got Jack Cogger there. So, I mean, when you're looking at it, it's weird because they've got Jack Cogger as cover in 14, and you could say, well, look, he might not play and they'll use the other forwards in the extended bench. But the extended bench is 18 Jenkins, who's a back, and Lussick, who's another hooker. And then you got Going. You just look at it and go, well, Patea and Papali'i are the only real forwards there, and Going as a 13. So that says to me that the minutes are pretty good for guys like obviously Yo, but also Papali'i is quite interesting. If you manage to get him in draft or in your draft he hasn't been taken and he's on the bench and he's been dumped or anything and you can get him, he still shapes up as someone that's going to be a 55, 60-minute player off that bench. And after this week, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being one of those rare options where you could look at buying him for Supercoach Classic even though he's on the bench. Because just looking at that bench, I can't see how he doesn't get 55, 60 minutes and tear up the middle and possibly some edge minutes as well, depending on the rotation. So, yeah, interesting one. And for this one, I think that a lot of people have gone, look, I want to ride the Reece Walsh hot streak. You could, but I tell you, it's a pretty tough one first up against the Panthers, who are at full strength. Nathan Cleary is not suspended, so I'm taking the Panthers in this one. If you really think the Broncos are going to continue on their form and smack the Panthers round one, then I understand going for Walsh. She's an expensive option that you got there, and you have those expensive options to look at the C and the VC on them. The Titans and, I almost missed my Roosters. Roosters and the Warriors I should have talked about. I think the big question for the Roosters one when we looked at this lineup that they named is the Roosters rotation. Quite interesting how they've named things. So I mentioned that I quite like Blake Steep as a mid-range option. I think he's going to get 50 to 55 minutes. How I see it going, I think that Robertson wants to keep his rotations and roles the same as what they were before Reece Robson went down with injury. So I think that the plan was for Connor Watson to be a 13 and to spell the starting 13 for about 25 to 30 minutes. So I think that Watson will go 25, 30 minutes at 13 and 10 to 15 minutes at hooker potentially. But you've got to ask yourself, when Robson comes back, is that going to happen? Because I feel like Trent Robinson's going to do the same rotation as what he will if Robson was there at hooker. So there is that small chance that Aielu will get 80 minutes because that might be Robson's plan. And then you look at someone like Wong on the bench. Wong could have been a 13, but at the moment, I'm pretty sure that they're going to put him on an edge where Nat Butcher is, and also potentially use Wong as a front rower. The year before last, Wong spent time playing prop in New South Wales Cup in preparation for the NRL, where they were going to use him as more of a middle, and then they reverted back to an edge. He's a massive body. He can definitely play in the middle. He can definitely be a front rower alongside someone like Nuffield White, and they'd wreak havoc. So I think that's probably the case and what's going to happen. People are a bit worried about that Roosters bench. It's, 4 forwards if you count Watson as a 13. It's always been that way. Guys like Lindsay Smith are going to get the lower end of 40 minutes. Spencer Lena as well is going to be an impact guy. I think, White, his minutes are safe. Angus Crichton's minutes are safe. And I think to a degree, 50-odd minutes should be pretty safe for Steep. So, Butcher, I would say he's not safe. If anyone was looking at him in draft, Butcher, I think, could end up going off even before the game, be replaced by Wong in the lineup, and there could be some funky stuff that happens with his minutes. On the Warriors side of things, I was pretty up and down on Laban when I've been talking about him before. Look, I've gotten more on board. I think that some of the comments by the coach, Webster, along with chatting to my mate Anton, who was on here for the Warriors show and is a great Warriors fan, has great Warriors intel. I got his opinion on this, so shout out to Anton. If they're going to use Leka Halasima as more of just a wrecking ball that goes out and just plays, and he takes minutes at 13, maybe Laban is going to get 80 minutes. And Laban has scored tries, and that's been there for him. If he's getting 80 minutes, it's going to be a great buy at 300k. I like Laban more than Paxton now, and I certainly like paying up for him more than some of these other guys that have come through like Noah and Howe that we didn't expect. They look like traps to me. So, Laban's probably ahead of the Melbourne Storm guys at the moment for me. I still think there's a risk on job security, but he's got talent. I've looked at it more, and I think he's probably the best of the bunch at the moment for me. As far as the VC and C goes, though, Teddy's owned by only 12% of coaches. So having the VC or C on him this week, it's an awesome grab at some early high round ranking and big points. Again, I went through the Roosters team preview earlier today. If you haven't seen it, go and grab it. But Teddy's numbers are off the charts. Almost 40% of the time he was turning up. 80% of the time he was going 80 plus almost. It's an easy one to look at him as a VC or C option for this one. Sharks and Titans. Look, the other VC and C option is, do you just go high and C? 145 last game versus the Titans. This one is at Shark Park. They are better at Shark Park. I definitely think it's an option. I like him this week. And I think the fact that Campbell is out for the Titans is going to make them far less competitive with Ilias there. And the Sharks forward pack could potentially eat that Titans pack alive. So I love it for the Sharkies at Shark Park. Heroes against Jojo Fafita and Fayamani, the rookie winger. That is a great matchup for Hero. I almost took him out of my side to downgrade to try and find money, and I looked at that matchup and went, I just can't do it. I think that he's a special for 90 plus, and Nikora the last 2 games has gone 90 plus against the Titans edge as well, by the way. Pack and the bench is a discussion point for the Sharkies. A lot of people are jumping off Calhoun. I understand why there is some risk there, but just to kind of taper that off a little bit, the Sharks have always had 4 forward benches a lot of the time. A lot of the time, those 2 front rowers on the edge of the bench are like 20-minute guys, and that's how it works. Everybody plays low minutes aside from Fanua Blake, and that's just the rotation. Even when you looked at last year, Jesse Calhoun played a couple of games there where they had a 4 forward bench just like this, and Calhoun still got 50 minutes. So if he gets 50 minutes, he should be a 50-plus scorer roundabout. That's still decent money. So I don't think that you should really be changing your mind about him. McInnes was about 50 minutes to 55 minutes sometimes. That was his role at 13 as well. I don't see how it's going to change for Calhoun. Again, the bench that they've got is similar. Vincent did play for 70% of last year, but a third of last year, it was just a 4-forward bench just like this. And it didn't really affect that lock position getting 50-odd minutes. So I think he still gets that. It does mean that other guys like Tommy Hazelton, for instance, got named to start. I'd normally be all over Tommy at 400k. I think that's a massive pot option because he's a try-scoring front rower, right? Who doesn't want that? But the problem is that there's all those guys there to feed minutes to. So that's why you'd stay off him and probably all of the front rowers aside from Fanua Blake. And even then, I'm a bit, less inclined to go with Fanua Blake even because of that bench and how his minutes shaped up last year. On the other side of things, the Titans, the opposition, no Campbell, going to make it tough for them. Howe vs Paxton, I don't want either of them. And I'm just putting a line through them. I don't know whether Howe's going to stay there at all. Paxton, I find really concerning. couple of reasons that I didn't get to expand on the official show. If it's, there's mixed reports. He apparently got through his concussion protocols. So if you've gotten through your concussion protocols, it means that you're meant to be healthy. If you're healthy and you're going to start before, you should be starting now. If you're not healthy, you wouldn't even be in the squad. He's in the squad in the extended bench. It's really weird to me how that's happened. And maybe he ends up starting, an hour, 90 minutes before kickoff when they change the teams. Maybe he gets put in the starting lineup. If that's the case, then maybe you switch your team around and get him back in. I'm just leaving it though. Concussions, as we know, can be very complex. Guys can be out for a number of weeks. If there is concussion symptoms still there or there's a concern, he could be out for ages. It could be a downgrade down the track to a Paxton. So I'm just steering clear of it. And I think the Titans will struggle in this one a little bit. I'm liking the Sharkies to at least put on points. So I think you've got some Sharkies in this one. You'll be doing all right. And Hines, definitely, I can't see him below a 75 plus myself. And I think that he's got the upside to do the big ton this week and be a good C option. Manly Raiders. Okay. Now, I looked at this bench as well and went, wow, Paseka looks fantastic because this Manly bench has got Joey Walsh on it with 3 forwards. It's pretty good for Paseka. If it was a 4-forward bench, it's a bit harder. And the other big thing here is that if you're looking at the pod C options, Turbo absolutely loves playing the Raiders. It is ridiculous, his record against them. He has a 92 average versus Canberra and 165 point high. You won't find better teams to match up Turbo against than the Raiders at 4 pods. Could not be better. If you've gone the Turbo pod, it is pretty risky to put the C on, but look, it's the second last game of the round. It's the time to do it, and you could really get ahead this round, and the numbers say that Turbo will go well. On the Raiders side of things, Hudson Young stood out for me. I really like him running at that edge for against the Manly Sea Eagles. He's averaged 70 plus his last 3 games across the last 2 years against Manly. And it's one of those ones where if you're looking at try scorers and you think Manly are going to give up points this year like I do, then Hudson Young looks a special. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's a 90 to 100 type of score this week. So really like him as a bit of a pod play. On the final game, Rabbits and Dolphins. I looked at this Dolphins and Rabbits sides and just went, look, I think there's points in this. So I think you want to have some of these guys there. Duncan on the bench, really weird. I didn't expect that. I thought Duncan was fantastic for the Rabbits last year. I thought he was a great pod option and also an even better draft option. All of a sudden, he's not an option at all. So I don't know what the plan is really going to be with him. But it's a great bench for Murray and Kolomatangi. Those guys, they've had their stocks go up quite a bit. Now, obviously, you've got a utility on the bench at the moment with the 3 forwards. If it sticks that way, it looks pretty good. Jai Arrow out of the mix has made UNA can start as well. I think that's helpful for the minutes for the forwards. So to me, I've really tried to get Keon Kolomatangi on my side this week, but it would be my 4th rabbit and I just can't do it because of that bye coming up. So if you've not got that many rabbits and you're thinking about it, this bench says to me it's a great one for Keon. And I think it's a really good matchup, Rabbits-Dolphins. I think there's going to be points in it. So guys like Latrell, I reckon, will feast, and potentially Herbie as well on the other side. But yeah, those are my thoughts for TLT. Thanks everyone for tuning in and for listening to the pre-season stuff. I really appreciate it. I know that there's a couple of team previews still to come. I'm going to get them out the next day or so. Those teams don't play until the weekend, so that should be fine. And next week I'll be back with the TLT episode on the Tuesday like normal. And that one will have Mikey on it for us to go through TLT in more detail. It'll be the first full TLT of the season too. So I'm looking forward to that. Until then, please jump on YouTube, iTunes and Spotify and subscribe on all those channels so you get the episodes straight away. And make sure you jump on social media too. X, Facebook and Insta we're on. You can follow us everywhere. And enjoy the footy this weekend. I cannot wait for tomorrow night. Thursday night footy is back. My Roosters play on Friday at 6 p.m. It is perfect. I'm going to enjoy myself. Hope you enjoy yourselves too. We'll talk more footy again real soon.
You'll never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid. Only you